Now let's go ahead and stick our hands into the Burp cookie jar. So what is this cookie jar? Well, once you start targeting an application, Burp is going to capture all of the cookies that you're using within that site. Now what Burp does is it's going to store all these cookies inside of its cookie jar. Now this cookie jar is shared between all of the Burp tools. And you'll see in the demo where you have some default settings scoping this cookie jar with particular tools such as Proxy and Spider. Now you can configure which tools this cookie jar should monitor. Realize that by default, the cookie jar is updated based on the traffic from the Proxy and Spider tools. So what happens is, as these tools run, their history gets captured, and Burp is going to update that cookie jar with any of the cookies that are identified in that HTTP traffic. Now it's possible for you to open this jar and view the contents of the cookies. Now we're going to be using this cookie jar for our macros to automatically update outgoing requests with cookies we need to keep our sessions valid. Now, as I mentioned, by default, the cookie jar will capture cookies as seen in the Proxy and Spider tools. But you can easily expand this scope to include scanner, repeater, intruder, sequencer, and extender as well. Now, the information that gets captured in the cookie jar once you open it is you're going to see the domain as well as the path of where those cookies were captured during the cookie handling mechanism of the application. So from here you can edit those cookies by removing them from the scope, or if you want to clear the entire cookie jar altogether, you can certainly do that in this particular area of the cookie jar section of the menu. So let's have a look at this cookie jar. We're going to open our cookie jar. We're going to take a look at the tools that are in scope by default. And we're also going to look at some configuration options that we have for inclusion as well as exclusion of our scope. In this demo, we want to take a more detailed look at the cookie jar. So we are on the Project Options Sessions tab, and if you scroll down, you'll see a section for cookie jar. Now, one of the first things that you should note is the default setting for the cookie jar is Proxy and Spider. So what this means is any HTTP traffic that's going to flow through either your Proxy tab or your Spider tab is going to get added to the cookie jar. So anytime Burp sees a cookie, it's going to add it to this cookie jar. So if I take a look at what's inside here, I've gone to a website and I have logged in just so that I could get some cookies assigned. And what you'll notice is that there's the domain of where I went, the path, the name of the cookie, and the value and an expiration. Now, just looking at this cookie jar, it looks to me as though this is an unauthenticated cookie. And once I get past the login page, I then get assigned some additional cookies. So it looks like I've got an ASP.NET Session ID cookie and an AM Session ID. Now, it could be that I may not want the unauthenticated cookie. That's fine. I could just remove that. Or it could be that I want to empty the entire cookie jar altogether. I could certainly do that. Perhaps I want to instead invoke a macro that assigns maybe a static cookie or a cookie that maybe is gotten from a completely different account because I want to check for session hijacking and see if that works. So that's a little bit of an overview of how the cookie jar works. So in this module, we took a look at the beginnings of our macro editors, including where we set up session handling rules, what the cookie jar has in its scope and how we can manipulate and manage that. We took a look at our editor and how we can add rules to session handling using the editor. So now let's go ahead and start making some macros.